start with the International Labour Organization. It's launched its annual forecasts of global unemployment in 2017 and 2018, and it paints a very gloomy picture. Global unemployment is expected to rise by 3.4 million in 2017, with developing countries the hardest hit. Well, Guy Ryder is Director General of the International Labour Organization, joins us from our studio in Geneva. A bleak picture for 2017. Talk us through what you're predicting.
Yes, it is a bleak picture, and as you've indicated, the headline figure is a rise of 3.4 million in global unemployed in the year that's beginning, and that will take us to a total of just over 201 million unemployed in the world in 2017. I think it's interesting to note that this is in large part due to the worsening of employment conditions, particularly in the emerging world, some of the big emerging economies. A slight improvement in the developed industrialized countries, but not enough to offset this overall negative tendency.
You also talk in your report about persistent high levels of vulnerable forms of employment. What do you mean by vulnerable forms of employment, and how do they affect the global economy?
Yeah, by vulnerable employment we mean own account workers, workers who are working in very variable and often very difficult conditions independently, and also contributing family workers. People are often unpaid, just working in a family environment. And the fact of the matter is we call them vulnerable, we worry about them because this category is very often synonymous with very, very difficult and unpleasant working conditions. Now, there is a small reduction still in the proportion of vulnerable workers in the world, but we're at 42% of the overall global workforce in vulnerable conditions, and the problem is with these overall adverse tendencies, the rate of decrease in vulnerability in employment is slowing down. And similar things apply, similar considerations apply when we talk about people who are working but still in poverty, getting than $3.10 a day. That's nearly 29% of the global workforce.
And these social inequalities that you talk about, perhaps most worrying in reading your report, is the social inequalities raise the risk of social unrest and discontent in almost all regions around the world, according to your predictions.
Yeah, I mean, from the report that we've just heard from you, we see that people are feeling a great deal of discontent with the labour market conditions that they're having to confront. And our social unrest index indicates that these unemployment figures are feeding through into this type of discontent. And perhaps, very much more directly, we're seeing it in our electoral politics as well. In the United States and elsewhere, people want something different. They really think that the labour market outcomes, the unemployment outcomes we're seeing are something which are not acceptable, and they want alternatives.
OK, Guy Ryder, Director General of the International Labour Organization, thank you for talking to us here on BBC World News.